Thank you so much. Great to be back here with our family at Rainbow Push. We just had a very exciting Wall Street project in New York City, the 22nd annual. Give that a round of applause. I have missed you all. I've been gone for the last 2 weeks, but let me tell you about my travels. And I want to talk about this on our last Saturday forum for this 2019 year for February for Black History Month. I want us to put our plight in context because there is unbroken continuity. Some young people are talking about a new generation and what the millennials are doing. Well, first of all, it's another generation. There's unbroken continuity. We all come from somewhere. The question becomes, what history do we know? What knowledge do we have? How can we advance our cause? I left town on February 6th to go through Doha, Qatar, en route to Kolkata, which used to be formerly known as Calcutta in India, for the Children's Memorial Foundation, where we were hosted by Mr. Mukherjee, a person that has worked with, an educator that has worked with Mother Teresa. While over there, I had a chance to visit the landscape, go to the market, and also be a part standing in my father's place, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, for the dedication of a school that's in the rural area outside of formerly known Calcutta, now Kolkata, to educate 1,000 students that come from the farmland. I'm going to post some of these videos and share them with you, but to see children in a rural environment that are being supported, picked up, brought to a school where parents are making less than $60 a month. These children would have been at home with nothing to do. But to see them do a 30-minute reenactment of a play for two outstanding men in their country, the poet, philosopher Tagore, as well as the dedication for Mahatma Gandhi. There they're honoring two persons, Tagore, their poet that's well thought of, and Mahatma Gandhi, a lawyer and activist. They had respectful differences of opinion, but they had a love for the country. Their issues were how to move India forward. And help me reframe the debate that we oftentimes hear in our community amongst African Americans. Do you agree with Dr. W.B. Du Bois, or do you agree with Dr. Carter G. Woodson? Well, there's really no comparison. They had complementary ideas. We need all of our rights right now, right here, like all human beings. That's the philosophy of Dr. W.B. Du Bois. When Dr. W.B. Du Bois talked about the talented 10th, he wasn't looking down on other African Americans. He was saying that the blessed of us have to help the rest of us. When you look at the fortunes in Silicon Valley that are being created, everyone in Silicon Valley is not bright. But if you have the benefit of being next to a Steve Jobs, if you have the benefit of being next to a Bill Gates, if you have a benefit of being next to a Michael Dell, if you just picked up their shoes every day, shined them and bought their stock, you would be rich. If you just worked near Jeff Bezos when they started off less than 30 years ago and just delivered his food and bought his stock, you would be rich. So when we talk about this artificial argument, debate versus Du Bois versus Dr. Who? There you go. When we talk about this debate, it's artificial. It's not necessary. If you are living in the South where they've cut off all of your means to have food, production, education, the message was you have to make yourself valuable. When you have skills and you produce yourself and make yourself talented, you will be irreplaceable. But if you don't work and have no skills, you should be afraid because your life will be in jeopardy. In India today, 1.3 billion people on God's earth. God loves some Indians. If you're talking about a region of the world where most of the people are poor and brown and don't speak English and don't practice Christianity, you cannot say God hasn't touched India. Here they are, 150 years now, celebrating the Mahatma Gandhi, his birth, his life, his meaning. Let me put it in context. This is the 400th year anniversary of Africans in America, from 1619 in Jamestown until 2019. By the year of 2015, Africans in New York City have been bought and sold for 300 years. The 150th anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi's birthday. I had to share with them that this is the 90th birthday year of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. This is the 50th year since man walked on the moon. This is 20 years after the euro has come together. We are marching on. This is 22 years after the start of our Rainbow Push Wall Street project. How does all of this come together? We are but 5% of the world's population, the United States. And you know the numbers, how we end up as 25% of the world's incarcerated. America has had a foot on our neck for a long time. But back to India, when you see a school that's teaching the children in a rural area, and the children were so disciplined, so respectful, and after they left off of giving us this play, you could hear their laughter, their play, their joy, their children. I didn't see a security guard. As I read the paper, I saw that the same Parkland schools, after the shooting, now they've authorized people in the state of Florida to have guns with officers that are former military officials that have a 12-inch and a 17-inch nose on the gun. And the principal at the school in Florida is saying, if something happens here, we don't want a fair fight. While we're over there, there's a shooting in Aurora, Illinois. People on the other side of the world are scratching their heads, asking why there's so many guns. What is going on in your country? They didn't have a program for suspension for their children at this Children Memorial Foundation school honoring Tagore and Gandhi. They had a meditation room where they're teaching the children to center themselves for 20 minutes a day, not go to sleep, while you're awake, to draw yourself into your consciousness. Well, why did you do that? Well, what are the consequences for doing that? Why were you so irrational? How do you feel? What was the purpose of the school? Mr. Mukherjee has a curriculum on humaneness. Humaneness. I'm all for the STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. And I'm all for the STEAM, the science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. But while I was sitting there, I couldn't help but think about a steamship as I got ready to come back home. We need to go beyond the science and the math, not in the ship. In my mind, the S is not for soft skills. I don't like that sanitized term. You need to be sociable. You need to stand up, look people in the eye, put your phone down, say hello, say good morning, say how are you, have some general sympathy. We need an S in a ship. We need an H. We need some health, physical health, biological, some mental health. What is stressing you? We have more African American children committing suicide. When you get hurt and you shoot somebody and the police arrest you, now 2 people are gone. Some people have some psychiatric issues that we have to confront. Some people have some sexual abuse issues that need to be confronted. We need the eye in the ship for some being industrious, not being a job seeker. They're honoring their entrepreneurs in India for those that are going to be job creators. We're the job creators. Who wants to be the job owner? We need that eye for integrity. Not what somebody caught you doing, it's what you were doing when no one was looking. And we need some P, and that's for some power and some personal power and respect. I remember years ago when I was an intern at an investment bank, and I'm repeating something I heard jingling in my head. I don't know what rapper said it, but they said, knowledge is power. And it hooked in my head, and I saw the t-shirts. And I tell an economist friend of mine, yeah, you know, knowledge is power. He says, don't ever say that, Jonathan. And I was hurt, ooh. He says, think about what you said. I repeated it. He says, that doesn't make sense. I said, knowledge equals power. I started trying to do some math to solve for X. Algebra does have a place. I said, so if knowledge equals power, power equals knowledge. I said, what's the answer? He says, I'll tell you tomorrow. I'm like, don't do that to me. He wanted to give me a headache to let me think about it all night long. So by the time I saw him the next day, I said, knowledge, you can have a lot of knowledge and have no power. So K doesn't necessarily equal P. P is probably greater than K. Power is greater than knowledge. He says, thank God you got it. You can have all the knowledge, but with no power, you can't do anything. Why does my father, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, tell you to use what you have? You've got to vote. You've got to register. School starts in your home, not in the building. You got to have some power. While I was over there, having left Kolkata, on to New Delhi, on to Mumbai, which was formerly Bombay, there's a renaissance going on. They're coming out of extreme deep poverty, 1.3 billion people. I was in one of the smaller states in India that has 90 million people. That is 8 times the size of the state of Illinois. Climate change is real that they are confronting. I was there at the end of the winter season where the temperature was around 80 degrees. The Bengal tigers are looking at extinction if this temperature continues to go up. 80 degrees at the end of their winter, where it's going to hover around 100 all summer long. In the southern part of the country, where you have Bangalore, where you have the IT capitals of the world, to see brand new campuses going up, built by Ernst & Young and KPMG. They will invest in India, but not in Chicago on the south side. To look at the trade pacts that are going on Indian, U.S., American relations. I just want to give you this. This isn't going to make you shout, but it's interesting. There were high-level delegations in both directions in 2015 with the United States government and India. The U.S. led a delegation to the summit in Ahmedabad. Here's what their goal is. During the bilateral meeting, one in September of 2014, the two sides set a target to increase bilateral trade in goods and services to $500 billion. Currently, it's at $114 billion as of 2016. 1/3 of all of our manhole covers, I'm talking about the steel and the iron that's over the potholes, that's over the sewage system in America, 1/3 of those products of steel come from India. The same plants that were closed in Bethlehem Steel and in Pittsburgh and in Cleveland and in Chicago are now coming from India. Economics is not in a vacuum. Economics is discussed and taught and thought out and has agreements. When I travel, I have to pick up every newspaper I can find. Qatar, they have a new initiative where they want to tap markets for $2.1 trillion. They're creating a new pact to trade with India, Yemen, Oman, Qatar, and they look forward to trading with Iraq when they reduce some of the sanctions. Why do I share this with you in the context of having come back from New York and the Wall Street Project? When I shared with you in 2015, it was 300 years after African Americans had to build the first wall, and that was on Wall Street. Nehemiah had a wall. There have been a lot of walls. And as I saw our president on television while I was in India, he doesn't need a wall. We need to see Jesus build a fence around him. His words incite violence. There is an immigration and migration issue that's affecting the world. I'm 53 years of age, born in 1966. The world population in 1966 was 3.5 billion people. 53 years later, because of health and food and distribution and technology, we're now seeing a world of over 7.3 billion people. The world has doubled in population in the last 50 years. There is a huge drain on resources, on our environment. Now, because of war, climate change, jobs, health, and opportunities, people are having to move and be dislocated like they've never done before. If you want to deal with the worldwide migration issue, you've got to go not on the branches, but to the roots of the problem. If my house is too hot, I'm going to have to leave the hills, leave the farmland where the land is no longer able to grow. 5 million people had to leave Syria, and they've gone into Europe, and they're changing the political dynamics over there. There are over 258 million people that are now called immigrants and migrants around the world. How big is that, relatively speaking? If you were to put a flag on 258 million people, that would be the 5th largest nation on earth. We've got 130,000 students of Indian origin that are in American schools getting advanced degrees. The largest amount of children in our school system from outside of the United States come from China. 10% of our student body at the University of Illinois in our flagship school come from China. They have an office from the University of Illinois Champaign in Shanghai. There are more children from Shanghai at the University of Illinois than from Sheffield Avenue in Chicago, than from Cottage Grove in Chicago. We have to help our own. We're a big country and we can help everyone, but we cannot look past our very own. In conclusion, there's a big, beautiful world out there that's dawning, and the young people are smart and energetic, and they're caring. We are now looking at 50 years after man has been on the moon, and there's hunger space still on planet Earth. 50 years later, we're talking about locking up African American boys and girls, acting like we don't know how to educate them. Jesus gave us the formula. They asked Mahatma Gandhi said, I would have been a Christian because I like your Christ, but not your Christians. I'd follow your Christ, but I don't like the Christians you have. Can I get an amen? I'm talking about some Bible-thumping people, all for right to life, all against abortions, but as soon as the child is here, they want to kill them. Reverend Martin Luther King, when he went to India, he says, I've never read of a man that was more Christ-like that wasn't a Christian than Mahatma Gandhi. Reverend Martin Luther King went to India and spent a month over there. Follow this thought. I know I've disjointed it, but I want y'all to put it together. The Bhagavad Gita is the Hindu's religious book. Henry David Thoreau was inspired by the Bhagavad Gita. He read that. He's called one of our transcendentalists. He's one of the abolitionists, he and Thoreau, Emerson. He said if you cooperate with evil, you're doing evil. This is where civil disobedience came from, where they said we're going to have nonviolence and non-cooperation with evil. Some people think that means boycott. No, that means stop participating with something that's evil. It's not in the negative, it's in the positive. If you're doing it and it's wrong, you're perpetuating it. Stop cooperating with things that are evil. That thought process got into the soul of Mahatma Gandhi when he was in South Africa, and they told him no Indians could ride on this train car. From there, he was a lawyer. He was wedded at 13, had a child at 14, Mahatma Gandhi. 19, he finished law school. He went back to India from South Africa because he could not participate. Then he developed his philosophy of satyagraha, soul force, rejecting the British goods, their clothes, their cars, their indebtedness. He told their people, we have to make our own clothes. Reclaim your own culture. That transformation is still going through. That's why Bombay is Mumbai to them. That's why Calcutta is Kolkata to them. They're reclaiming their heritage. Reverend Martin Luther King went to India after his father went with Dr. Benjamin Elijah Mays to study this philosophy. That's where we get our resistance on the bus boycotts in Montgomery. God's love moving around the world. So I'm happy to be back home. We have work to do. We're going to establish a relationship with the school in India. We're going to move beyond our STEM, which is a good start, and we've pushed it towards STEAM, and we're going to catch up with them and get on the STEAM ship. We're going to have some service. We're going to have some social consciousness. We're going to have some health of mind and body. We're going to have some industrious, where we teach our children to create jobs and just stop asking for a job. Stop sitting around the house talking about they didn't call me back. I didn't get an email. Nobody responded back to me. We're going to stop that mindset. You can go to the house next door to you, clean over there, cook over there. Start by doing somebody's nails. Start by doing something for somebody. Volunteer for something. You can't be broke, out of time, and not have any personal manners. I'm done. Thank you.